What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics. Today we got a reaction to Paul McCartney and his album Memory Almost Full, brought to us by friend, longtime supporter, and patron of the channel, Iain. Thank you, Iain. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the patrons who make this thing go. If you'd like to support us in any way, check out that Patreon link below or the Patron link on the end screen. We have some McCartney up. We did some solo McCartney stuff years and years ago. Trey and I did. And then I've done a little bit of McCartney with Wings, but haven't done much McCartney at all. Obviously, if you're new to the channel, we have all the Beatles albums up. We have all reviews of them. We've ranked them all songs-wise. We have Beatles Top 100 Songs, ranked the albums. In the Beatles playlist, there's all that stuff. In the Beatles solo work, we have the Lennon, McCartney, and Harrison in there. So you can look there after this video if you want to see this stuff. But Iain says, 2007's Memory Almost Full is my personal favorite Paul McCartney solo album. As a massive Beatles fan since university, I was always hoping for a truly great McCartney album to rival John Lennon's post-Beatles work. Although I like a lot of individual McCartney solo songs, none of these, Wings excluded, albums did it for me. This album had pretty good reviews and sold more than 2 million copies. I'm the same way on Paul. Look, I love Paul. We saw him in concert a little over 5 years ago. I love Paul. But his solo stuff is pretty miss for me, but I've never heard this album. I have heard one song on this, though, but I'll get to that later. A little bit of my info. 14th studio album released in June of 2007. It was his first for Starbucks Hear Music record label after previously having a 45-year-old relationship with Capital EMI. The recording contract with Capital EMI ended a few months prior to the release of the album after McCartney had found out that EMI were planning to take 6 months to set up a promotional plan for the album. He was the first artist to sign to Starbucks Hear Music, and it helped him because like 80% of the albums he sold in the US the first week were from Starbucks. It was produced by David Kahn and recorded at numerous studios between October of 2003, pay attention to these dates, and from 2006 to February 2007. In between the 03 and 06 sessions, he did a whole nother album, Chaos and Creation in the Backyard, which came out in 05 with the great producer Nigel Godrich. It reached the top 5 in both the US and UK, as well as Denmark, Sweden, Greece, and Norway. It was ranked 22 on Rolling Stone's list of the 50 top albums of 2007. Many Grammy nominations for Best Pop Vocal Album, Best Male Pop Vocal Performance for Dance Tonight, Best Solo Rock Vocal Performance for Only Mama Knows, and Best Male Pop Vocal Performance for That Was Me. So That Was Me and Dance Tonight both got Grammy nods in the same category. 9 demos were recorded at Hog Hill Mill Studio in September in 2003 by Paul and his touring band. A month later in October, the sessions began. Him and the band recorded the songs You Tell Me, Only Mama Knows, Vintage Clothes, That Was Me, Feet in the Clouds, House of Wax, The End of the End, and Whole Life. However, the sessions were cut short and put on hiatus when he started that other album with Nigel Godrich. In the website constructed for the album, McCartney stated, quote, "Actually started this album before my last album, Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. When I was just finishing up everything concerned with Chaos and had just got the Grammy noms in 2006 for that album, I realized I had this album to go back and finish up. So I got it out to listen again, wondering if I would enjoy it, but I actually really loved it. All I did at first was just listen to a couple of things, and then I began to think, okay, I like that track. Now, what is wrong with it? And it might be something like a drum sound. So then I would re-drum and see where we would get to it. In places, it's a very personal record, and a lot of it's retrospective, drawing from memory, like memories from being a kid from Liverpool and from Summers Gone. The album is evocative, emotional, rocking, but I can't really sum it up in one sentence." End quote. Any songs that were started but not finished for Chaos and Creation in the Backyard, he did not want to redo for Memory Almost Full. As sessions for the album progressed, McCartney wrote some more songs. In total, between 20 and 25 songs were recorded for this album. 5 songs, Mr. Bellamy, Ever Present Day, Gratitude, Nod Your Head, and In Private, were all recorded in one single day in March of 2006. It features a 5-song melody. We might be familiar with those, right, Abbey Road fans? Which in an interview with Billboard, McCartney said that it was previously, quote, "something I wanted to revisit, as nobody had been doing that for a while," end quote. The medley was a set of intentionally written material, whereas the medley that McCartney worked on for Abbey Road was actually made up of, quote, "bits we had knocking around," end quote. The medley starts off with Vintage Clothes, which McCartney sat down one day to write, he said. That was looking back and looking back about life. It was followed by That Was Me, which is about his school days and teachers. The medley, as McCartney stated, then, quote, "progressed from there." The next songs are Feet in the Clouds, about the inactivity while one is growing up, and House of Wax, about the life of being a celebrity. The final song in the medley, it's not the final song in the album, it almost is The End of the End, was written in McCartney's Cavendish Avenue home while playing on his father Jim's piano. The album overall, pretty good rating, 69 on Metacritic. Entertainment Weekly gave it an A-. Pitchfork Media gave it a 6.4. I like Pitchfork's rankings, but we're going to judge for ourselves. So if you've never been with this before, the music will not be in the video, but it's going to be at a Vimeo link below. Let's kick this thing off. And I said I knew one song from this. I actually know two. We'll start with Dance Tonight. Iain gives a little thought on each song and also gives a grade to each song, which is fantastic. He says this is a strong opening track with mandolin strumming and upbeat song that leaves you excited for the rest of the album. He gives it an 8 out of 10. It's the lead single in the UK. I'll get to that in a minute. 26 in the UK, 69 in the US. This is one of them that was nominated for Best Pop Vocal Performance at the Grammys. The left-handed mandolin used for the song was purchased by Paul from a guitar shop he frequents in London. Whenever he would play it, his 3-year-old daughter, Beatrice, would be moved to dance, after which Paul states that the song wrote itself. It was the last song recorded for the album, and it was included on the album at the last minute. Paul's going to play everything on here, and on most of the songs, he plays everything. On this one, he does vocals, mandolin, drums, percussion, lead guitar, bass guitar, keyboard, and a gyro. Probably pronounced that wrong. Never heard of that instrument, but Paul can do it all. I'm going to have the lyrics up as always. Thanks again, Iain. All right, really simple song, Dance Tonight. We're just going to dance tonight. You can come on around tonight. Mandolin's fantastic. Like the percussion on there was great. Paul gave a very good vocal performance, right? It's just a fun song, man. I don't know how you can't smile and sing along to it. It's a great way to start this. Next up, we have Ever Present Past. Iain says, not as arresting as Dance Tonight, but a pretty cool song with harpsichord. 7 out of 10. This was the first single in the U.S. You know, the U.S. I live in the U.S. We get things backwards all the time. Didn't chart. Second single in the U.K. went to 85. Once again, Paul played every instrument on here. I won't do this on every song, I tell you, but it's just good to know. Electric guitar, bass, harpsichord, flugelhorn, acoustic guitar, clavulin. Like, this guy can do it all. You already know that. You're watching this video. Very interesting instrumentation. I liked it. It almost sounded like a little bit of a vocal treatment on Paul's voice. Might not have been, but I enjoyed it. Like, kind of harkening back probably to his Beatles days, but we always speculate that. The chorus, the things I think I did. The things I think I did when I was a kid. Then the bridge, I couldn't understand a word they were saying, but I still hung around and took it all in. I wouldn't join in with the games that they were playing. It went by in a flash. It flew by in a flash. Like, I mean, we forget sometimes how young these guys were. I mean, when they really started to hit it big, it's insane. But that was a good song. Next up, we got See Your Sunshine. Iain says another warm and upbeat song. The album's shaping up well, a little too music-y. I think that's what that word says, but McCartney still knows how to write a good song. 7 out of 10. Paul said it's pretty much an out-and-out love song for Heather. A lot of the album was done before, during, and after our separation. I didn't go back and take out any songs to do with her. Which is interesting. Immature. See Your Sunshine, just an out-and-out love song. I don't know what I thought of that song, honestly. At first, I'm like, I like this, and after a little bit, I'm like, nah, man, this is too much for me. But then as it went on, I'm like, yeah, this is pretty good. So how about that for a first impression? I'm not really sure. But this album's very well produced. Next up, we have Only Mama Knows. Iain says, I really love the intro to the song, almost Jan Tiranesque. It then breaks into a rock-heavy guitar track. Very enjoyable. 7.5 out of 10. Only Mama Knows. One of only 2 songs over 4 minutes on this album. I'm with Iain. I really like the intro, and then we played again on the outro, the coda. It's very sophisticated, and then I like the rock style of the guitar. The song is about, I don't think it's autobiographical. I saw somebody trying to claim they thought it was. Is he ever going to see his father's face? So he doesn't know his dad, and his mom leaves him in this town, and he doesn't understand why. She kind of abandons him, is what I get. She was a single mom and abandoned him, but maybe she gave him up for adoption. I don't know. Who knows? He doesn't play it all out in the song, but I thought it once again sounded like a little bit of a vocal treatment on there. I liked it. Yeah, it's a good track. One of the things that stands out right now to me 4 songs through is the production value on this album is quite high. Next up, we have You Tell Me. Iain says a melancholic and beautiful song, 7.5 out of 10. I found in a lot of places about his memories of his first wife, Linda, of course, the great Linda McCartney, who passed away. But I don't know if that's true or not. I just know from what the research tells me, but you never know if that's 100% accurate. All right, yeah, a love song, You Tell Me. When was the summer when the skies were blue? The bright red cardinal flew down from his tree. You Tell Me. Summer that it never rained. Were we there? Was it real? Is it truly how I feel? Maybe. You Tell Me. So just a dialed back Paul McCartney love song. Next up, we have Mr. Bellamy. Iain says, narrative song with some charm. Not as annoying as something like Maxwell's Silver Hammer. A song I detest. A song that Trey and I actually really enjoy, but I know most Beatles fans hate it, and I get it. But hey, man, I like it. The piano rescues this song for me. 7.5 out of 10. All right, Mr. Bellamy. Once again, so well produced. I mean, I don't even know what I think of the song, but just the production, the intricacy of the different instrumentation on it, makes it a good listen. Except we have Gratitude. Iain says, least inspiring song for me in the album. Nice sentiment, but a skip for me. He hardly ever says that. 6 out of 10. Now, here's some stuff I found. So you can kind of take this with a grain of salt, but I also do have a Paul quote. But it's reportedly about the divorce between Heather Mills and Paul. Paul invited Radiohead frontman Tom York, and you can see somewhere behind me is OK Computer on our banner behind me, but we're big Radiohead fans around here, to play the piano on the song, but he declined. The press ran articles claiming that York had, quote, snubbed McCartney, but Tom later revealed that he, quote, really liked the song, but he felt he'd been able to perform to the required standard. I mean, Paul's got a high standard, I get this. Paul said, gratitude is just me being grateful for the good stuff in my life, past and present. That's the thing about me. When I talk about love, it's often general. It's not always specific. If people think these songs are specific to Linda, that wouldn't be true. But they're pertaining to Linda or my children or other things in life for which I'm grateful. So she's certainly in there. All right, gratitude. I know he said it wasn't about Linda specifically. It seems it's more like it's about Heather, right? He said, well, I was alone. Verse 2, I was lonely. I was living with the memory, but my cold and lonely nights ended when you sheltered me. Loved by you. I was loved by you. Yeah, I was loved by you. And then, of course, I want to show you my gratitude, or I want to show my gratitude. So I didn't mind it. I mean, it's fine. But now we're going to get into that little 5-song medley that I talked about at the start. We got Vintage Clothes. Iain said, upbeat song. Has the vintage Beatles feel. Paul's voice is great on this track. Love the distorted organ. He says it here. Start of a 5-song medley, which makes the second half of the album the strongest. 8 out of 10. This is the one that Paul said he sat down one day to write, and he was just looking back about life. All right, some good stuff there, some good harmonizing there. Paul, when he was talking about this song, he said, for me, vintage clothes will be my clothes from the 60s. The idea behind the song is that what went out is coming back. Fashion going round in circles. I mean, I meet quite a few guys in young bands, and they suddenly question me. Did you keep your clothes? Have you got any of your old clothes? And in actual fact, I have. The Beatles Taylor, a guy called Dougie Millings, he's in a scene in Hard Day's Night. He was a guy we always used to go to, It was a thrill. Instead of just going out and getting a sort of a suit as you used to before, you got a suit to job applications or whatever suits were for, Suddenly you were going to get epaulets and buttons, linings. That to me is where the song Vintage Clothes comes from. And then because it's reflecting on the past, it sort of says, don't hold on to the past. The message of it is vintage clothes are great, but don't live in the past. Wear the clothes from the past and move on mentally, And I thought that definitely had a little bit of an old school Beatles, really Abbey Road sound to it. So definitely enjoyed it. Time to go to the second song in this medley. That was me. Iain says, a bluesy, fun song, properly retrospective without being too nostalgic. Retelling an interesting life and using his discordant piano strikes with a passionate vocal performance. Really enjoy this song. 8 out of 10. And remember, Paul said this was about his school days and teachers. All right, that was me. Not sure what I thought of the arrangement of that. It was diverse. I mean, it was interesting, but I thought the lyrics were good. And Paul said about this song in an interview, they told him, this seems to be like that you were amazed at the life you had led. And he said, yeah, that's exactly right. How could I not be? Unless I just totally blocked it off. There were 4 people in the Beatles, and I was one of them. There were 2 people in the Lennon-McCartney songwriting team, and I was one of them. There was one guy that wrote Yesterday, and I was him. Then he's like, there was one guy that wrote Let It Be and Fool on a Hill and Lady Madonna, and I was him too. All of these things would be enough for anyone's life, so to be involved in all of them is pretty surprising. You have to pinch yourself. That's what this song is about. When we come to the midway part of this medley, we got Feet in the Clouds. Iain said, not the best song on the album, but listenable. Gets interesting later in the song with filters on the vocals. 7 out of 10. All right, Feet in the Clouds. Look, I am not trying to slam on Sir Paul. I love Sir Paul. This one just didn't really do it for me. I thought it just became so monotonous. But once again, very impressive production. And I will say this. I mean, I don't want to get too much into my ending thoughts. I can see how if you do these songs on repeated listens, that they would sink into you more, right? Because the production's so good. And there is a catchiness to all of them. You might like the catchiness, you might not. But if you listen to it enough, I can see how it would grow on you. Next up, we have House of Wax. Iain says, the voice is being pushed, probably too far, but you can imagine the epic feeling that was intended. Almost an REM feeling till we get an epic guitar solo. Doesn't quite pull the song off. 7 out of 10. I saw where he says about being the life of being a celebrity. House of Wax, really good guitar solo on there. I don't know. I guess it's about being a celebrity. I mean, it's a little hard to get it out of the lyrics, but I've said this before. but I mean, I don't remember what video, and I seriously doubt if you're watching this, you watch that video, but there's levels of fame, right? Now I'm almost 53 years old. So like I still come from a time pre-internet, pre-social media where the world was much smaller in the fact that we were all watching the same thing. We're all listening to basically the same thing, if we're listening to popular radio. Now the world's so fragmented. I'm not going to say it's impossible to get super famous. Taylor Swift has found a way to do it. As we've entered into this generation, she's way more famous than she used to be, but it's pretty hard to achieve a just like sky high level of fame. And I don't know how many people have ever been more famous than the Beatles, right? I mean, there's a few, but Paul has had this level of fame for over 60 years. That would be an insane thing to walk out and pretty tough. Right? Obviously, there's all these perks. There's also a lot of difficulty to that, right? You can't do anything without being mobbed or, you just can't. You can't run to the store. You can't go watch a movie. Like, it would be tough. I would not want that level of fame. And I know a lot of you are like, I'd take all that money. Yeah, but there's a price that comes with everything we want. But so if that is about fame, I get it, man, because it'd be a tough shoes to walk in, man. We're going to end the medley part with, appropriately, the end of the end. Iain says, highlight of the album for me, re-listening to the album, I couldn't resist skipping ahead to listen to this first. I enjoyed it as much this time as with every previous listen. This has the shivers running down your spine in seconds. Even the whistling isn't annoying. Doesn't get old. 10 out of 10. I reacted to this song for another supporter of ours, Jason, who has a fantastic YouTube channel in his own right, about 3.5 years ago. So I've heard this song once. I do remember I thought it was fantastic. I don't remember much else about it, but I do remember that. The end of the end. So this is the writing that Paul is capable of. This is the writing that he's still capable of in 2007. Just a great sentiment. I think the chorus at the end of the end is the start of a journey to a much better place. And he starts the song off with the chorus, which he doesn't usually do. And a much better place would have to be special. No reason to cry, no reason to be sad at the end of the end. So, I mean, it's a great funeral song. As morbid as that sounds, it's a great funeral song. It's a fantastic funeral song. This is a really good song, the highlight of the album, but I don't want to give it away. We still got one more song. We got a short one. We got Nod Your Head. It says, really don't get on with this, probably the subject matter. Maybe I have no sense of humor. Usually it's striking, but I just can't listen to it. A 6 out of 10. I found it was the third single. It was really just released as a free download single from iTunes Music Store. Paul played all the instruments in this one. Okay, Nod Your Head. He's really getting into the strength of his voice, right? He's really singing it hard. I know the voice isn't as powerful as Why Don't We Do It in the Road. That's kind of what it reminded me of in the start, because it's not 1968, it's 2007 when he's doing this. But I think the album should have ended with the end of the end, but I also see why he didn't do it that way, because that song is so heavy, right? So melancholy and heavy. When it'd probably end on something a little more upbeat. Take it from Death to Nod Your Head. Now we'll get to my favorite tracks. We'll go with Dance Tonight, The End of the End, and Vintage Clothes. Honorable mentions, Ever Present Past, and Only Mama Knows. Now, before we get to my final thoughts and my grade of the album, let's get to Iain's. He said, a little sugary sweet in places, and Paul's voice is aged, but I think this actually works well. Feels genuine, and you get the feel of genius. For me, the album's ending is a shame, but that might just be me. Despite this, I think it's an 8 out of 10 album. It's not an all-time classic album, but I listened to this over other good solo McCartney albums like Flaming Pie. I've never listened to Flaming Pie. I know that people speak highly of it. So he's at an 8 out of 10. And I mentioned it earlier. I think this is an album I can see with the way the songs are so well produced and arranged. I can see if you listen to it more and more, it would definitely grow on me. I'm not going to be that high at the start on this one. On first listen, I'm going to be a 7.0 out of 10, which is a pretty high grade for me when it comes to Paul's stuff. Look, like I told you, I think Paul's a genius. I don't think his music always reflected that after he left the Beatles. But I think that's why groups work way better as a rule than solo stuff, because there's somebody there to check and balance you. Even as it was for the last several years of the Beatles when John wrote his songs and Paul wrote his songs and George wrote his songs. But there's somebody there to check and balance you and go, no. And sometimes the Beatles got that right, and All Things Must Pass by Harrison proves that sometimes they got it wrong. But 7.0 out of 10. I'm glad I listened to this. I really do need to fill in the rest of my musical knowledge on Paul, because I know so much about the Beatles time. So thanks to Iain for bringing this one. Let me know what you think of this album down below. What are your favorite tracks? And what do you think is the best McCartney solo album. Or if you can't choose the best one, choose 1 or 2 for me, 3, whatever you want to do. Help me out with that. Till next time, guys, I will see you.